Colon cancer is the second deadliest cancer in the United States. And here's the thing that keeps me up at night as a GI doctor. It is also one of the most preventable cancers we have. If we catch it early, the survival rate is 91%, whereas if we catch it late, that number drops to 14%. 14%. So then why are 50 million Americans who are eligible for colon cancer screening not getting screened? I'll tell you why. Because nobody told them that they have options. Most people hear the word colonoscopy and they immediately think the prep, the sedation, the day off work, needing someone to drive them home, and they just don't do it. And I get it. I completely understand. But here's what your doctor may not have told you clearly enough. You have choices. Real FDA-approved evidence-based choices, and today I'm going to break down every single one of them so you can make the right decision for you and your situation. Hey, I'm Dr. Glover. I'm a gastroenterologist in Las Vegas, Nevada, and this is the conversation I wish every one of my patients had before they turned 45. Let's get into it. Because here's the reality. The goal set by the National Colorectal Cancer Roundtable is to get 80% of eligible Americans screened. We're currently at around 59%. That means roughly 1 in every 3 people who should be getting screened isn't. And that gap is costing lives. Now, when I say eligible, I mean everyone 45 years of age or older. That's not a typo, and that's new. The guidelines lowered the starting age to 45 a few years ago because we're seeing colon cancer in younger people at rates that frankly alarm me as a GI doctor. And if you haven't already, check out my video about early onset colorectal cancer. So if you're 45, 50, 55, and you haven't been screened for colon cancer, this video is for you. And if someone you love is in that category, send them this video. Let's talk about what your options actually are. Let's start with the gold standard, the one you've probably heard the most about, the colonoscopy. Here's what a colonoscopy actually does and what it entails. You do a bowel prep the night before. Yes, the liquid, I won't sugarcoat it, it's unpleasant. But that's the hardest part. Then you go to sleep, I do my work, we put in a flexible camera into your colon while you're sedated. We look at every inch of the lining, and here's the part that makes a colonoscopy unique. If we find a polyp, we remove it on the spot, right then and there. A colonoscopy is, as we say, both diagnostic and therapeutic. That's not just detection, that's prevention. And the accuracy, colonoscopy detects colorectal cancer at a rate of around 92 to 95%. And for precancerous polyps, the stuff that will eventually become cancer if we don't remove it, colonoscopy finds far more of them than any other test. The frequency, if it's clean, if we don't find anything, you typically don't need another one for 10 years. Now, here's where I want to be honest with you. There are downsides. You need a day off, you need someone to drive you home, the prep is unpleasant, and there's a very small risk of complications. And for some people, the access and logistics are real barriers. That's why other options exist, and that's why understanding them matters. Option number 2, the FIT test. FIT stands for fecal immunochemical test. You collect a small sample at home of your stool, you mail it in, done. No prep, no sedation, no day off work. The FIT test looks for tiny amounts of blood in your stool, blood that you can't necessarily see with your naked eye, but that can signal the presence of cancer or large polyps. It's simple and it's cheap. FIT detects colorectal cancer with a sensitivity of around 74 to 79%, not as high as a colonoscopy, but still meaningful. What's the catch? You have to do it every single year. Miss a year, you've got a gap. And if it comes back positive, you're going to need a colonoscopy anyway. And there is an additional downside. It may miss 1 in 4 cancers with a sensitivity of only around 75%. And it's also extremely poor at detecting precancerous polyps. I personally would not recommend a FIT test for anyone given its limitations and the fact that much better options exist. Now, let's talk about Cologuard, the one you've probably seen advertised everywhere. Cologuard is a stool-based DNA test. You collect a stool sample at home, you mail it in, and the test looks for two things. One is blood in the stool and or abnormal DNA fragments that cancer cells shed. That combination makes it much more sensitive than a FIT test alone. The latest version, Cologuard Plus, detects colorectal cancer in around 94% of cases. That's impressive for a non-invasive test. Now here's what the ads don't always tell you clearly. First of all, polyp detection is only around 42%. Compared to a colonoscopy, that's a significant gap. So while Cologuard is great at finding cancer, it's much less reliable at finding polyps that would become cancer if not removed. A second downside is false positives. Around 13% of people without cancer will still get a positive result. That positive result sends you to get a colonoscopy anyway. Third is frequency. Cologuard is done every 3 years, and every time it comes back positive, even if it's a false positive, colonoscopy. Cologuard is an option, but I want you to understand exactly what it can and cannot do. It's not a replacement for colonoscopy in high-risk individuals. And in my practice, I only recommend Cologuard for patients who are either unwilling or unable to get a colonoscopy. We sometimes use Cologuards in patients who have had an incomplete colonoscopy due to body habitus, strictures, or other reasons. And now is the one you may not have heard about yet because it is brand new. In July 2024, the FDA approved the very first blood test for colorectal cancer screening. It's called Shield, made by a company called Guardant Health. Let that sink in, a blood test. You walk into your doctor's office, they draw your blood as part of a routine visit, no prep, no sedation, no stool collection. And that blood is analyzed for cell-free DNA that cancer cells shed into your bloodstream. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds almost too good to be true. So let me give you the real numbers because this is where it gets somewhat nuanced. Shield detects colorectal cancer with a sensitivity of about 83%. This is decent. The specificity, meaning how often it correctly says you don't have colon cancer when you don't, is around 90%. But here's the limitation I need you to understand clearly. Shield's sensitivity for precancerous polyps is only 13%. 13. That means if you have polyps that haven't yet become cancer, this test will miss them 87 out of 100 times. Compare that to a colonoscopy, which catches and removes polyps at the same time. So the Shield blood test suffers from the same drawbacks as the Cologuard stool test and the FIT test. Poor precancerous polyp sensitivity. Ideally, you want to catch cancer before it happens. Do we really want to wait until a test showing you have cancer is already positive? So despite these drawbacks, why does Shield matter? Because of adherence. In a real-world study of over 20,000 patients, the adherence rate for a Shield test was 95%. Compare that to the 25 to 71% adherence for colonoscopy and stool-based tests respectively. People actually do the blood test. And here's the clinical truth. Oftentimes the best screening test is the one that actually gets done. Shield is not perfect, but if Shield gets someone screened who would otherwise be in that 50 million unscreened Americans, it's saving lives. Shield is done every 3 years, covered by Medicare, and can be ordered by any doctor. If it comes back positive, of course, you need a colonoscopy. So, you've got 4 options. Which one should you choose? Here's how I think about it in my clinic, and this is what I say to my own patients. If you are average risk, meaning no family history of colon cancer, no personal history of polyps, no symptoms, and you are willing to do the prep, colonoscopy is still the gold standard. 1 procedure, 10 years of protection, and we remove anything that we find while we're there. Nothing else comes close. Colonoscopy is by far the best test at detecting and removing precancerous polyps before they have the time to grow and turn into cancer. If you have anxiety or are either unwilling or unable to get a colonoscopy and you're consistent, a yearly FIT test or Cologuard every 3 years are evidence-based choices, but with the downsides that we discussed. If you are someone who has been avoiding screening entirely because of the prep, the procedure, the fear, the logistics, then the Shield blood test may be exactly what bridges you into getting screened, a blood draw at your next doctor's visit. If you are high risk, meaning a family history of colon cancer, Lynch syndrome, a history of polyps, we're not even having an alternatives conversation. You need a colonoscopy, period, point blank. These other tests are not designed for you. The one thing I want you to walk away from this video knowing, not being screened is like playing Russian roulette. Lifetime risk of developing colon cancer is around 4%, so roughly 1 in every 20 people if you are not getting screened. Every year you delay, polyps that could have had been removed are growing. Cancers that could have been caught at stage 1 are progressing towards stage 4. Every month I find colon cancer in patients who are not adequately screened or who were screened late. The options have never been better than they are right now. I want to leave you with something I tell my patients in Las Vegas every single week. Colon cancer does not give you warning signs early. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't announce itself. By the time you feel something and develop symptoms, the conversation is very different. This is why we screen. And in 2026, you have more tools to do it than any generation before you. So here's what I'm asking you. 3 things. Number 1, if you're 45 or older and haven't been screened, call your doctor this week. Tell them you want to talk. Tell them you want to know your options. Show them this video if it helps. Number 2, drop a comment below. Tell me, have you been screened? Which tests did you have? Or have you been avoiding it? Tell me, what's holding you back? I enjoy reading the comments. And number 3, share this video with one person in your life who needs to hear it. We have a real chance to close that screening gap, but it starts with that first conversation. That's all I have for you. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and if you found it informative, consider sharing with someone who may need this information and hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one.